Hello and welcome to the Vault of Truth YouTube channel. For a while now, I've been going through my proofs of the flat earth to try to identify one that I think is the winner, the one that I would consider number one in the rankings. This was no easy task because after all, I have 158 different proofs, and they are all good. But I did manage to find one that truly is a lethal death blow to the globe. I also saw it fitting to name this proof the final experiment as a way to kind of return fire on the faked final experiment that was conducted by the fake Pastor Duffy, the government agent, and his band of sellouts. If you have been looking for one quick proof to send to all of your family and friends in order to instantly win them over to the flat earth side, then this is it. So I found this gem of a proof buried in my 150 proofs video, and I realized that I didn't do it proper justice. I didn't explore all of the supporting evidence that truly makes this lethal. Of course, I'm talking about the Felix Baumgartner Red Bull Stratosphere jump that was conducted many years ago. And for those of you who don't know, this publicity event sent a skydiver up into the stratosphere in a high-altitude balloon with a capsule connected to it. The skydiver Felix, upon reaching the stratosphere, then exited the pod and dove back down to Earth's surface, setting a world record, being the first human to skydive from the stratosphere. Now, the first thing to note is that the launch site was at Roswell International Air Center in New Mexico. Now, it's important that I address this because many globe proponents try to argue that the initial baseline for the horizon is impossible to establish because the terrain may not be level. Well, that argument is easily debunked with this information. You can see here that Roswell, New Mexico sits on flat, arid plains. The whole region is primarily flat, as it says here, and the only exception is the Sierra Blanca mountain range, sitting way off in the distance 40 miles away. You can see there the topography features wide open, arid plains and high desert landscape that stretch for miles with minimal elevation change. So here's a quick look at some photos of the launch site, and you can see the whole region is laser flat. Now let's take a look at the horizon drop angle that you would get at an altitude of 128,200 feet, which is the peak altitude that Felix ascended to during this event. As it says here, there will be a 6.33 degree dip angle to the globe horizon below eye level. This is calculated using the formula shown below, where the dip angle equals the arc cosine of the Earth's radius divided by the Earth's radius plus the altitude. The next thing I want to address is the claim that a lot of globe proponents make about this, and that is they try to claim that the pod, or the capsule, is not level during all parts of the flight. In other words, they're trying to claim that the reason why the horizon line looks higher than it should during segments of his voyage is due to the fact that the capsule is tilted downwards in the direction the interior camera is pointed, and that you are not truly seeing an eye-level representation. Well, this information here debunks that. You can see here the Red Bull capsule was specifically engineered to be incredibly stable and maintain a level orientation during ascent, float altitude, and separation. It further says that they achieved this through several specific design features. It has a re-entry style shape with an 8-foot diameter base panel, so that would stabilize it against any winds taking place. And then the next point, you can see they actually engineered the weight distribution, such as the equipment, life support systems, and the seat, to keep the center of gravity low and centered. So they definitely went the extra mile to make sure that this capsule maintained a level orientation the entire way up. And of course they would. The whole world was watching this event, so it had to look good for the cameras. And then wanted Felix to be able to walk out and do his theatrical dive out of the capsule and not stumble and trip out of the door because the thing is tilted crooked. Now I want to address one final thing that globe proponents will probably try to say, and that is that the capsule was not sitting level on the launch pad, so therefore we cannot use the horizon seen out of the doorway here as any kind of reference. Well, first of all, no one ever launches anything, such as a rocket or a balloon, with the rocket or the balloon capsule starting off at a tilted angle. That just isn't done. No one does that. And number two, you can see here in this photo showing the launch position of this craft that it is sitting at a perfectly level orientation before liftoff. So now let's take a quick look at this. If you remember from my 150 proofs video, this is a Blender 3D model that I made of the globe horizon compared to the eye level horizon at 110,000 feet. So as you can see, it's very significant. We are going to use these two lines and the associated gap as an overlay on the Red Bull Stratosphere Jump video footage. And I realize I'm being generous because this is what it would be at 110,000 feet, yet Felix ascends all the way up to 128,200 feet. But hey, that's okay. I'll grant them the last 18,000 feet. This is already devastating enough. Okay, so here we go. So this is the starting position of the capsule on the ground. And you can see that we've added our overlay with the eye level horizon lined up exactly where it should be. Because obviously at ground level, the horizon we are looking at here would be at eye level. And remember, we've already established that the whole region at this launch site is flat. So no one can make the argument that we're looking at uneven terrain or looking at some kind of hill or something. And we're certainly not looking at those distant mountains that were mentioned 40 miles away. Because at that distance, they would be very much hazed out due to the atmosphere. So this is the eye level horizon. And wham! Globe ended in a single piece of video footage. But of course, to drive the point home, I'm going to let this video footage of Felix's jump continue to play out while I leave the horizon bracket up, just so you can see that the capsule is not wobbling back and forth, and that we really are seeing the horizon at eye level at 128,000 feet. Now I'm going to let this play for a little while, and while this is playing in the background, I want to have a little chat with everyone. The Flat Earth community has been pumping out evidence for 11 years now, all over the internet, all over social media, and I will say that we have managed to wake a lot of people up to the truth, and that is certainly a good thing. But I truly think we've reached the end of this phase. The reason why I say that is because this movement is only going to go so far on social media and the internet. The establishment is not very threatened by that because they have enough controls and censorship mechanisms online to keep this stuff under control. I mean, just look at my channel, for example. I'm only getting a few hundred views per video, if I'm lucky. Yet a 10-year-old can post a video about a squirrel farting and get 10 million views in a week, which is pure insanity because the content you find on my channel is the single most important stuff that mankind should be focusing on, and all of this other trivial stuff should be at the bottom of the list. But you can see how Satan has flipped and inverted everything on this earth, including people's priorities. And that's how the government keeps getting away with all these attacks on the masses, setting up NASA to rob the public of $2 trillion to lie about the shape of the earth, putting the American public into endless debt and an unattainable cost of living slave ship, running a college scam to put students in debt so they can get degrees that are now worthless, allowing poison in the food, allowing poison in the water, and allowing poison in the air, enriching the billionaires while causing mass homelessness, and then on top of that, making it illegal to be homeless, where you can't even pitch a tent anywhere or live in a camper anywhere, causing endless wars and mass death for the New World Order agenda, running propaganda and mind control on the TV, hitting people with dangerous levels of EMF radiation from 5G towers, running fake pandemics to inject people with nanotech. I mean, any one of these things would have caused previous generations to rise up in violent revolution. And now we have 100 of these things going on at once. So when is this generation or society going to stand up? And then, as if all that is not horrific enough, now you have AI and AI data centers going up everywhere. That's soon going to take everyone's jobs and allow surveillance on the people that's going to surpass everyone's imaginations as to what is possible as far as oppressive control from the government. And you might be saying at this point, well, I thought this was supposed to be a flat earth video. Why are we talking about all these other subject matters? And the answer to that is, it's all intertwined. This is all part of the control matrix that the satanic powers have set up to keep everyone enslaved, beaten down, until their very souls are sucked out of their lifeless bodies. The level of evil on this earth now has reached unprecedented levels. And you can get angry at the evil rulers of this world all you want, but really the blame falls on the common masses that have just sat down for decades and decades and allowed all this stuff to keep going on with no pushback whatsoever. It's time for actual action to happen, not just people complaining on the internet. That's why I myself moved out of the United States a long time ago, because I will not tolerate the level of evil that is taking place there. I'm also not holding my breath and waiting for everyone else to grow a backbone, muster up some bravery, and really take a stand. The very first thing people should be doing is liquefying all the assets and everything they own and scraping together every bit of cash they can find to either leave the country or establish an off-grid homestead. Obviously, that's the first step, because you can't bite the hand that feeds you. You can't take a stand against a government that controls your food, your housing, your transportation, your energy, and your health. Now, as far as the flat earth part of this goes, you might be saying at this point, well, what does it mean to really take a stand on that? Well, I believe the next phase of this movement needs to be a class action lawsuit against the federal government and NASA. I certainly can't do that by myself, and I don't even think 100 or even 1,000 flat earthers doing that together would be enough. I think the powers that be would shut that down pretty fast and have all of those people dealt with in one way or another. It's going to take a class action suit on the magnitude of millions of flat earthers coming together under the suit. They would not be able to silence or deal with a movement that large or a court case that large, giving it a much greater chance of success. But everyone is going to have to step out of their fear and their comfort zones. People have become worshipers of comfort. They don't want to sacrifice their hot water, their TV, their internet, their air conditioning, their vacations, movies, video games, a plethora of different restaurants to eat at, a plethora of different desserts to choose from. And I think this is one of the biggest problems, because people know deep down inside that the moment everyone starts trying to stand against any of this stuff, the powers that be are going to viciously fight to keep their power. And it will be mass civil wars everywhere. And everyone will lose all of these luxuries and their various lifestyles. There is no doubt about it. The elites found the magic formula for enslavement of the masses. They learned throughout history that violently coercing people into being a slave in your civilization doesn't work very well. They discovered a long time ago that as long as you make your slaves comfortable with just the right amount of lifestyle amenities, they will comply with any amount of abuse that you can come up with to hit them with. Because at the end of the day, everyone knows how hard it really is to try to survive on your own in the wilderness or farming your own food. And so unfortunately, what this comes down to is an attitude of, yes, massa, you can beat me silly and abuse me every day. Just don't make me give up my TV, my air conditioning, my Krispy Kreme donuts, and my Coca-Cola. And I know that sounds cruel for me to say that, but you should know by now I keep things real on my channel. I don't sugarcoat anything. I say the things that people need to hear, not the things that they want to hear. But that is why God has called me here.